hosting me and for hosting this series of events. So this is the second out of 3 that we are doing. The next one will be on May 2nd. And that one we'll be talking about the different types of dementia, which ultimately I find to be a very sort of appropriate presentation at this time, considering what some of the news that came out, let's say last week, with Bruce Willis being diagnosed with aphasia, which is, a form of, could be a form of dementia. So that should be a good presentation. So that is on May 2nd. That is my shameless plug. Again, my name is Monica Moore. I work for the Mary S. Easton Center for Alzheimer's Disease Research at UCLA. And part of my our world is to promote education events such as this. So thank you to everyone who is here. So I do ask if you, again, in this world of Zoom, it's best if we can find a way to engage and find a way to interact. So if you can find your chat feature on your Zoom screen, please feel free to put questions in the chat. And also, ultimately, we're still a fairly small group here today. So if you have any questions, you can just sort of unmute yourself and say, excuse me, and we can see how we can get some engagement amongst everybody who is here today. So what I'm going to talk about today, again, we're going to identify the world of caregiving, discover tools for coping with caregiving, then also talking about the impact of stress on your health. Excuse me, and then also some very important stress management tips. So Rosalind Carter, the former First Lady, really did a lot with caregiving. She actually has a nonprofit organization called the Rosalind Carter Caregiving, a Caregiver Foundation, I believe is the exact title. And she has these 2 quotes on it that she's known for. The first one is one that I have been using for a number of years, where there are only 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will be, and those who will need. And you think about, like, we all fall into one of those categories. Everyone here will be one of those categories at one time in their life. And then I found this other quote today when I was doing a little bit of research for the presentation. And I think this really sums up so much of what our caregivers deal with. They say caregiving is hard, even on good days when it brings joy and fulfillment. It requires dedication, determination, and time. And everyone here who is a caregiver, you realize, I think, probably the truth behind that statement. And even on the good days, that there's lots of struggle. And so one of my big areas of that I feel very passionate about, that I really like doing, is working with our caregivers. I run 4 different caregiver support groups at UCLA, and I manage a total of 9 different groups, realizing the importance of people getting support, and realize that people shouldn't be doing any of this on their own. And for the most part, no one signs up for this, right? No one here signed up and said, oh, what I would love to do is to take care of my demented mother. That is truly what sounds like a great idea. This is what I want to do. It's not someone's goal. It's just a place where somebody ends up. And so being able to support all of you and those of you who are caregivers. So just some very basic information here about who are the caregivers. I use this as sort of as a scope, so you could realize that you're not alone. When we see that 20 to 25% of family members are involved with elder care, and again, we're talking elder care here. We're not talking about, we don't lump the word caregiving in with children under the age of 18. Majority of caregivers are in fact women, and 1/4 of women caregivers are also caring for a parent as well as young children. A lady that I was speaking to a few weeks ago, her husband is 57 with early onset dementia, and she has a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. So you see that world of just being overwhelmed and being stretched on all ends. Sometimes too, we even hear where there are these people, someone again, that age, 57, caring for a spouse, and they also still have aging parents. And that really, you think about the parents, the spouse, and the children that they have to take care of. And you see how people can just be so stretched and just really not taking care of themselves. Because when do they have a chance? Because also, for the most part, these people are also working outside of the home. 50% of caregivers work outside of the home. And then 72% care for either a parent, a step parent, a mother-in-law, or a father-in-law. So for the most part, it usually is looking at this population that it is for parents who people end up being the caregivers for. 52 million caregivers provide care to people over the age of 18. And then you look at who a typical caregiver is. And you look at this little statement here, 46-year-old woman who works outside the home, cares for her mom, either married or living with her partner, most likely has children, and then all of the other elements that are a part of that. I say to people, it's like life is busy in itself with responsibilities and with activities, and then you throw caregiving into the mix. And that's really where, life can be very busy and very overwhelming. And I think sometimes it's diminished because, they say, oh, so how's your mom? Well, what are you going to say? How do you really answer that question? Because it's not so much about how your mom might be doing. It's about you. It's about the stress that's on your shoulders. It's about how that's impacting you. But is that really where you always want to go when you talk to a friend? Maybe it's just like, oh, things are fine. Because sometimes it's just easier, as opposed to spending even more time and even more energy into discussing the feelings and the weight that are on your shoulders. So while caring for a loved one, caregivers often stop taking care of themselves. The scary statistic is that 50% of people who are caring for a loved one with dementia will die before the person that they are caring for. That's half of the population because they're not caring for themselves. They're not taking care of their own needs. Even just a world of eating right and exercising, and even just as simple as maybe just drinking water, right? You see how it's not a priority. So that's what we want to focus on with this presentation is how do you turn caregiving for yourself to a priority? And it's really hard to remember to do that. So when we think about the world of the risks of caregiving, and I'm going to talk about all of this a little bit more in depth throughout the presentation, but just looking at some of these very basic risks for the poor mental and physical health. Again, you're so busy making appointments for your loved one that you don't make a doctor's appointment for yourself. Increased death rates, as I mentioned, misuse of drugs and alcohol, coping mechanisms, right? Sometimes people realize, they need to find their own ways to cope. And as we say, coping mechanisms aren't always healthy. But it's a way that sometimes people get through, but it's not always the best way to get through. Chronic stress and depression. And depression really that is greater than just the world of I'm a little down. It's really where it's hard to get up off the couch. It's hard to move on. It's hard to move forward, let alone to do any type of self-care. Family and marital conflicts. That sort of explains it, especially if you're caring for a parent and you have a sibling who may disagree or who may have plenty of their own opinions. And also we look at the world of early placement in a care facility, just because of the overwhelming nature of caregiving, the day-to-day stress, the physical stress, if you're caring for someone in your own home, that true physical stress is like, how long can you actually care? If you are a 5'2", 130-pound woman, how are you going to care for your 6'220" husband? Like even just getting them in and out of the bathroom, getting them dressed. It's a true physical challenge that people are put through. And very few caregivers, family caregivers, get the training that they need to properly lift somebody, to properly bathe somebody. And this is where we come from, is like trying to empower people to realize that you may not have signed up for this, but this is where you're at. So you need to take care of yourself and find these classes that you can do where you are able to take care of your own body physically. Also, when we look at signs of caregiver burnout, we find this world of caregiver burnout actually to be something that happens very gradually. It's not a matter of you wake up one day, you're like, oh, I'm done. It's gradual. It's the world of little things on top of little things, extra tasks, on top of extra tasks, where you find the time that you are just really overwhelmed and stressed. So when looking at this list, realizing and think about this to yourself. If you are a caregiver, which I'm going to go based off the assumption that most people here are, as I find I don't often have people join my presentations if they aren't somehow directly connected to the subject or the topic of my presentation. And so, but you see, looking at yourself, looking at your own daily life and looking over this list, how has your sleeping and eating habits changed? How many times are you at a point where you're not really able to laugh or to feel joy? And you find, that to be a great struggle for you. Stress and irritability. Let me tell you, I think that is the area that, oh man, if I could wave a magic wand and I could help and remove people's stress, or at least a true way of coping with it, that would be a wonderful gift that I'd love to be able to give to people. But it's all about trying to figure out how this works in your own mind, because what works for Carol may work differently for Lynn, that may work differently for Elaine. You all are different people, and the way that you handle stress and internalize stress is all going to be very different. So I see I have like 3.5 of you on video, and I know that we have a few other people who are just here. But those of you who are, if you are able to share, where do you feel stress? Where on your body does stress accumulate? I always find that when I'm stressed, it's my shoulders. I am a stress person here. I'm not a headache person. I'm a shoulders tension person. Where does anyone else feel that stress when you're experiencing it? Or you could put it in the chat. We warned you, it's going to ask for interaction. No one here feels stress? So again, we all experience stress differently, and finding the way to manage it. In my gut, okay, that's a good one. All right. Then sometimes people, again, with that, then you're not going to eat right. Carol, I see you unmuted. You want to share?
Oh, my blood pressure goes up.
Okay. And can you feel it go up, or you actually know it based upon doing a blood pressure?
I know it. I know. And I always take my pressure, to try to calm down.
Anyone else? Ways that where you feel stress? I know sometimes too, people say that they experience the stress in the world of not being able to sleep, or their sleep habits are very poor. And that's where the stress comes out. It actually hits them more at night than it does during the day, because during the day, they're in survival mode. Like, okay, I got to get through the day. This is what I need to do. But at night, when the body has relaxed, is when lots of that comes back up. All right, excellent. Thank you. I see Elaine says headaches, neck pain, then associated body pains. Absolutely. And resentment sometimes. Deborah, thank you for that honesty. And we'll talk about that as well. I think that comes up a lot. I know in my support groups, resentment comes up a lot. And it's a difficult topic, really, because it comes out so differently. Are you resentful of the person who's sick? Or are you resentful that you're the one stuck doing this? Even if it's your mom, right? And you love your mom and you do anything for your mom and they're the best person for you. Like, darn it, why me? Like, why me? Why is it me? Why is it not my brother? Even though it's nothing else that you would want to do, but it's still those struggles and those challenges. Feel a loss of compassion. Yeah. We, again, in our support groups, we get some people who are just, I loved our support groups because it's a chance for people to be very honest. Because other people who are there, they get it, right? They've been there too. And this world of I might be honoring my loved one by caring for them, and I'm grateful for that. But what are the underlying feelings? When sometimes when we hear that somebody has passed, we, of course, we're sad that the person has died, but at the same time, sometimes the caregivers are just like, but I now have a sense of relief because that day today is over. And that's an okay statement. It's not saying that you are a mean and heartless person because you feel relief that somebody died. It's, it's sort of, it gives you this chance of, okay, maybe I can get my life back. So when we think about really the impact of chronic stress on the body, it's not just in our shoulders or in our gut or by headaches. Those are the symptoms. What's actually happening inside? And so we look that through our I always have the hardest time saying this word. You can all read that word right there. Okay. Muscle tension, right? It's that stress, the headaches and the migraines that can kick in. Our respiratory system is affected by it through shortness of breath, rapid breathing, psychological stressors also. Oh my gosh, I think our minds are probably our worst enemies because our minds can't always rest, right? And so if our mind can't rest, what are you doing? You're thinking of the next thing, and then you're thinking of the next thing, and then you're thinking of the next thing. Worrying about that next appointment, worrying about the next, or, oh, well, what if, or what's going to happen next? So the psychological stress can negatively impact someone if they have asthma, COPD, emphysema, as well as bronchitis. Again, it's your respiratory system. It's, being able to breathe properly, which will then help you with reducing your stress. Also looking at the effects of stress on your cardiovascular system. Long-term can build up over time, long-term problems for your heart and blood vessels, increased risk of hypertension, heart attack, or stroke. So we see how stress isn't just something that people say is bad. It really is, and it really does have a negative effect on your entire body and on the way that your body is able to process. We also look at this world of chronic stress on the endocrine system of our bodies. Increased cortisol, which is the stress hormone that people feel. And you see this again, looking at the linking to these different types of disorders: chronic fatigue syndrome, metabolic disorders, depression, and immune. Who was it who said it here in the chat? And I have the chat up. Whenever I do these Zooms, I try to multitask with all of my different screens up. So we're looking at it. Deborah said, in her gut is where she feels the stress. Well, that's your gastrointestinal system. You see how the stress is affecting that area of your body. Because if we think about it, so much research has come out in the past few years about the gut-brain connection and how the microbiomes in your gut actually are, they affect your brain in terms of mood. They affect your brain, even if we're looking at dementia risk down the road. And the bacteria that's in the gut, there's the good and there's the bad. And we want more of that good bacteria in there. But when there is stress in your body can't really find that balance. So it's going to affect your long-term brain health as well as your emotions. So we see how when we say to take care of yourself, it really is a full body way of taking care of yourself. And then somebody said in here, the world of resentment of both, yes, Dean and Deborah both mentioned that, where we're thinking about the nervous system, right? It's building up, it's this fight or flight. You're all right, here we go. I got it. But then after a while of doing that, you start to really just get tired of it. And that resentment can really build up. So I'm going to ask all of you to bear with me here. We're going to do a little bit of an exercise. And realizing that breathing is one of the things that you can do that helps you the most. And of course, we say breathing, and everyone's like, well, I always breathe. But when was the last time you took really good, deep, honest breaths? So, we think about the yogis, people who do yoga, but for centuries, the yogis have used breath control to really be a tool to promote concentration, to improve their vitality, and to improve the way their body feels. Research has also shown that with this controlled breathing, it can help with anxiety, your mood disorders, sleep, and stress. UCLA has a program called the Mindfulness Awareness Research Center, and they have an app, and you can do different podcasts through them, where lots of it just focuses on this breathing. And it's not so much guided imagery of where you go off into a field and you envision this, but it's just slowing down and taking a really deep breath. So I'm going to ask everyone to get comfortable. If your feet are on the ground, if that's preferred, if your back is straight. And so if you look at this image here, what we want to do is breathe in through the nose and then out through the mouth. And you see how it actually changes your body system, the way that your body is shaped and the way that your body presents itself. So let's do this. Is breathe in through the nose and then hold it. And then exhale. Do 2 more of those. Breathe in through your nose, nice and slowly, slow, gradual breath in. And hold it. And then out. And then 1 more. Deep breath in through your nose. Hold it. And then exhale. Does anyone feel even a little bit better than they did before that exercise? Hopefully you feel just a little bit better. And that is something that you could do that throughout the day. My problem is remembering to do that, right? Because once you do, it's like, oh, yes. Okay. I know someone who actually, they like the dry erase markers, they write on their bathroom mirror, and they say like bathroom mirror, and there's like just a little note that says breathe. Because then it's a simple, oh yeah, let me just do that while I'm here, right before I wash my face, brush my teeth, after I wash my hands, whatever you're doing there in the bathroom, just looking at this note to remind you to breathe. And focused breathing. I actually find sometimes when I'm in the car and if I'm stopped at a red light, it's a great time to take a few breaths. Because you're not going anywhere. Keep your eyes open, just in case. Don't get that relaxed. But finding that way where you're able to just focus on your own breath. Because it can, again, help with your relaxation and other cognitive behavioral strategies. It really can just help you sort of set your mind in a different place and be able to focus for your next task at hand. So this next list here that I have, mentally stimulating and leisure activities, we have seen, again, through research, research that's focused on mindfulness, research that's focused on caregiver health, is looking at the importance of finding time and activities that bring you pleasure. And really thinking about things that bring you pleasure. Obviously, the past 2 years, things have been a little bit different. So maybe if you love going to concerts, well, that's not exactly something you've been able to do too readily in the past 2 years. But thinking about ways of little, small, attainable tasks that you could do that bring you pleasure. If anyone wants to unmute or type in the chat something that you do that's a pleasurable activity for yourself that you try to focus on, that you tried to do. And if you want, just feel free to if you unmute, just shout out while I'm trying to watch everything here.
Walking.
Do you have a specific time of day? Is it a
Yes.
routine, or is it just okay, what do you do, Carol?
I walk 4 to 5 miles a day, starting at 6:30 a.m.
Excellent.
5 days a week. 5 days a
Ooh,
week.
good for you. That is amazing. And do you listen to anything? Do you do music, or do you just walk and just enjoy the sounds? Okay.
I walk with a group. And we talk,
Great.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wonderful. And again, you're getting the socialization.
Right.
Which is very important as well, finding ways to be physically active as well as socializing. You're hitting different areas of your body, which is good for you. Excellent. Deborah says you're gardening, cycling, reading, and sometimes taking long naps. Great. You know, when it comes to like, oh yeah, Elaine, go ahead.
Shopping.
In-person shopping or Amazon shopping?
No, in-person shopping. I find it helps me to like just decompress from everything else that's going on around me, and I could just focus on nothingness until I see something that I might like or not.
Right.
Yeah, great. As long as the shopping is within financial realms, because then that can add to additional stress once you get the credit card bill down the road. Like, oh shoot, now what am I doing? Yeah, I find like I enjoy cooking if I have the time. Like I dislike having to be like, oh shoot, it's 6. Oh no, what are we doing? But I love it if I start cooking. Even like I always throw my teenager off when I start cooking like around 5. He's like, Mom, what are you doing? Like, it's not time to eat yet. I was like, oh, no. I'm starting to get into my happy place here. I'm going to start chopping, and I'm just going to enjoy, and I'm going to make this more of a process. It does not happen often by any means, but when it does, it's something that's like, oh, because then you're really putting that love into food, that love into, you know, celebrating this with you know, the people that you care about. I've always found that to be one of those great activities. I'm not a reader, so if anyone ever says sitting down and reading, I feel like I'm wasting my time. But I can walk, I can travel. You find these types of things where you're active. And we always say with this is doing something that brings you pleasure, not saying what anyone else says that you should do. If I say, hey, Lynn, I think you need to take up knitting, and Lynn's like, oh my gosh, I don't like knitting at all. But Monica said I have to knit. It's like, well, then it's not going to be a pleasurable activity, and it's not going to provide the stress release that what the goal of it is. So it's also this world, we believe, of this world of an attitude of gratitude. You know, realizing that, yeah, things might be really tough. Things might be really hard, but what do you have that you can be grateful for? And looking at this world of things might be really bad right now, but I'm able to find some joy. And it may not even be in the caregiving world. It could have nothing to do with that. Just thinking about ways that you're able to bring joy into your own life and where you're able to be grateful. The research shows that grateful people have a higher reported level of positive states of alertness, enthusiasm, determination, attentiveness, energy, and reduced stress. You know, we all have those people in our lives who, if you say, you know, how are you? Their answer's like, I'm good, things are fine. And then when you peel back the layer a little bit, you realize everything that's going on. But we also have those people who, hi, how are you? And the first thing they say is, oh, right? It's like finding which one's going to be better for you. The person who's like, I'm fine. Or the person who's, oh, you know, just in those two statements, you see it. So realizing that, trying to find the gratitude, trying to find the things that you are grateful for. So I'm not going to make anyone say anything right now, but I want everybody here to think of one thing that you are grateful for. And just sort of hold on to that thing. And maybe, you know, take that thought and put it in your pocket so that when times are really hard and times are really overwhelming, you can pull that thought out and think about that one thing that you can be grateful for. This is this is actually my favorite activity of this whole presentation. You know, sometimes I find that caregivers are overwhelmed, not so much with the world of actually caregiving, it's that they have to do everything else as well. You know, it's like, oh, you have to go through the mail. Oh, you have to pay the bills. Oh, and you have to pick up the trash. Oh, and you have, right? It's all of those other things. The world of like caregiving is like, well, I could be, you know, provide my undivided attention to somebody and help them out. What's all those other things? Okay, so let's say there is an incontinence issue. Well, now I have to do the laundry. So there's lots of these tasks that build up, and they build up around you. And so I love this activity where it's do any task that can be finished in literally only 1 minute. And if you look at, if it takes less than 1 minute, it's something that you can do, and do it right now. Don't do it later. So you look at this list here, like hang up a coat. I'm terrible with like all of my dining room table chairs had like jackets or sweaters on it. It's just like I do it off, I take it off and then I leave it and I grab another one, or a kid does that, or, you know, it's like, that's where, so this, we're like, okay, so you just quickly hang up those things. Then that clutter's gone. Quickly go through your mail. 99% of the time these days, it's all junk anyways. So, you know, just toss it all straight into recycling. And looking at this world of like, what is something that you can literally do in 1 minute and that would help you feel a little less stress, overwhelmed, being like anxiety, feelings of being overwhelmed, etc. So thinking about something that you can do, and really trying to take this on as a practical tip for you for after this presentation. Try to incorporate this into your day. Is there one thing that you can do? You know, everyone is overwhelmed. Everyone has a lot to do. But maybe you could just hop on and take care of one item. So just looking at this in terms of the ways of taking care of yourself and being productive at the same time. So this is a theory. It's called SMART. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. All right, so let's say that you are, and again, we're talking about yourself here. We're not talking about your caregiving situation. That is there and that is present. We want to find a way that you can take care of yourself. So let's say you want to get out and you want to go for a walk. Or no, not even that specific day. You feel like you need to move. You feel like maybe you need to lose some weight. So this is so then let's come up with a specific goal, a specific task. Let's walk. Measurable. For how long? Like, okay, well, I'm sure Carol didn't just start off walking 4 miles a day. I'm sure that was probably something that was built up to, right? That's
Yes.
not just something that you're, you know, just one day like, all right, I've never done this before, I'm going to do this. So
No.
maybe you say you're going to just walk half a mile, right? Or 20 minutes. You're going to walk for 20 minutes. Is it attainable? Probably. But if I said walk 4 miles, is that attainable? Maybe not. So let's start. You want to lose weight, so you're going to be specific in this. You're going to walk. You're going to go for 20 minutes. That's attainable. And it's relevant because it's going to help your heart and it's going to help your body. And again, time-based. So look at this, you know, whatever task it is that you have that's overwhelming to you or that is there in front of you, look at this acronym of SMART and see how you can incorporate this into these tasks of your day so that it's not this laundry list of items. Like everyone has these huge lists, right, of things that you want to do all day long, but it's not really going to help you because you're just going to be too overwhelmed and you're never going to want to start. So finding these ways to do a SMART task. Anyone have any questions or comments up to this point? All right, if so, I have my chat box open, so feel free to put any questions in the chat or come off mute and just ask.
What did the SMART stand for?
Oh, let me go back to it. Here you go. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so the next thing that we're thinking about is building your support network. So we talk about our self-care, we talk about the way that we need to benefit ourselves in that regard, but now look at what else is around you, who's around you. See what your family situation is, who are your friends, your neighbors, any type of religious community that you might be a part of, and build this network. And sort of look outside of what you may think would be your day to day. You know, people often do say, oh, if you need anything, let me know, right? I'm sure everyone here has heard that. If you need anything, let me know. But how many of them actually follow through? So start asking them to follow through. Say, you know what, Carol, I really would love it. If you're going to the store, could you also pick this up for me? That would be really good for me. Where you start giving people actual, measurable goals that will truly help you. Because I think that is something that people really struggle with as well. You can also, if you're in a world of isolation and depression, you can feel like you don't have a support network. You could feel like there's nothing around you. But look at your network, look at the people and seeing who might be there. And sometimes it's the most unlikely people. It could be that neighbor who you've always just said hi to. But if you reach out to them, they could really be that person who could be the best for you. You notice that they go to the store like every morning. Actually, I have a neighbor who goes to the store every single morning. So if I actually needed something, I could probably ask him, like, hey, you know, because he just goes and he buys literally, I think, like his day's worth of food. And then that's it. I'm sure his fridge is empty. But you realize, like, okay, that's somebody who would probably be very willing, always very nice and friendly. Well, I'm there anyway. Sure. What do you need me to pick up for you? And so seeing how you can really create your own support network. Again, there are the worlds of professionals and support groups, and we'll talk about those a little bit later, but really focusing on the aspect of family and friends and your own general community as well. And lots of religious organizations do have groups as well that could be there to be able to provide support for you too. So when we think about the professionals who can help, you know, there is such a great list. Some are fee for service and some are, you know, private pay, but some are through nonprofit organizations that can really provide you with some of the additional support that you may need on a free basis. So we have geriatric care managers. So these are professionals, usually social workers, who specialize in long-term care planning and support. My co-facilitator of my support groups is a geriatric care manager, and some of her days is just spent going to the doctors with people so they can get that support because their loved ones aren't able to do it. So, or they help with finding communities, facilities, doctors, sort of creating this additional care team for your loved one. They are geriatric care managers are fee for service, and they do not accept any type of insurance. Insurance does not cover their work, but it is a good professional. I always call it like the professional in your pocket. All right, so I need this help. It's the professional in my pocket. Let me give them a phone call. The next one down is looking for geriatrics, medical and health professionals, really trying to find people who can specialize, who can support you in the medical care that is needed. And you could be with one doctor that you've been with for 10 years, but maybe that doctor's not giving you what you need. So reaching out, branching out a little bit and trying to focus on the doctors and the nurses who might be able to really help. I know at UCLA, at the Easton Center, we're in the Department of Neurology, and we have our neurologist, but then we also have our nurse practitioner who's there to be able to help and to support. So it's not just the doctor and their, you know, who is there or their assistant. Looking at physical and occupational therapists as well for your loved one to see how can they get some additional help to maybe help with some of their needs. If they're having problems moving, if they're having problems with mobility, then maybe getting in a physical therapist could be what can help them be able to do that a little bit more, and with taking that stress off of you, because it's not your responsibility all the time, finding these professionals who can help. And I like to put down here music therapists. There's other types of professionals, music therapists, there's art therapists. Bringing these types of people in can really help make it a more well-rounded environment for your loved one. Social workers, it can be found through community organizations, could be found maybe through a doctor's office. And then support groups. As I say, I believe very strongly in the world of support groups and the power of, it's not even so much the facilitators, it's the power of being with other people who understand. I always say in my support groups, I'm there to make sure everyone behaves themselves and that we sort of move along. I love it when the caregivers are there supporting each other, because that's really where the beauty of the groups are. And finding groups that work for you. If you've tried a support group and you're like, oh, I tried that once, it didn't work for me. Well, maybe that just wasn't the right group. And try a different group. Find a group that fits. Maybe you want one that's faith-based. Maybe, you want one that's all men. Maybe you want one that's, only spouses. So finding your caregiving situation and finding the group that is specific to that. I see Deborah wrote in there, as well as music and art therapists, do you work with therapy animals? I know I personally do not, but I know the world of therapy animals is wonderful. Pre-COVID, UCLA had a fantastic pet program, which when they'd be by the cafeteria, all the employees would go over there and love seeing the animals. And it really does help with stress levels. It helps with the caregivers. You're there, you're able to pet a dog for a little bit. Oh, at least for me, it's okay, that's enjoyable. That can bring down again those cortisol levels and being able to help with eliminate stress that exists in your body. When we think about laughter here, so there's an organization called Laughter on Call. They specifically work with people with dementia and their loved ones. And I think laughter is something that as we get older, we do less, right? Because life's busy and life's serious and we can't laugh because it takes away from the seriousness of all the things that are surrounding us. And we feel the impact of the news. We feel the impact of the stress in our world. But when you think about laughter, it really is beneficial. It has short-term benefits, increases oxygen to your brain. It soothes tension. But then there's also the long-term benefits. And this is why that organization, Laughter on Call, has really been doing a lot of great work, realizing the importance of laughter on long-term health. Improves the immune system, it can relieve pain, it definitely can improve mood. And realizing that laughter can be that best medicine that so many of us don't experience on a day-to-day basis. So I ask you here, time for you to bear with me here on this. I have a few jokes for you. So let's see how these go. All right, so just a few jokes. What do dentists call their x-rays? Anyone want to unmute or toss it in the chat? Any ideas? What do dentists call their x-rays? They call them toothpicks. All right, this is where I'm relying upon the three of you who are on camera. Oh, Elaine gave me a thumbs down. I can't say any of these are good, but they're going to get you to chuckle. Okay. I spend a lot of time, money, and effort child-proofing my house, but the kids still get in. All right, why did the invisible man turn down the job offer? He couldn't see himself doing it. All right, and now this last joke. I give credit to, when I was adding these jokes to this presentation, my son, who is 13, was going through jokes as well. So this one, I blame him. So if no one likes this joke, it's my son's fault, okay? Have you heard the movie about constipation? It hasn't come out yet. So, but again, let's see, I'm seeing Carol laugh, I'm seeing Elaine laugh, I see Lynn smile on these. It's like, okay, there we go, at least, right? It's bringing a mood. It's changing things. No matter how bad the jokes are, they don't actually have to be funny. But it's the world too of having a sense of humor, because it's also going to make a difference in your day. It's going to make a difference in your blood pressure, because you might be able to take things a little less seriously. Granted, it's all very serious, but maybe without that same level of pressure and anxiety that maybe you do. Yeah, hold on here. I can't get off. Okay, couldn't get off our bad joke page. Okay. So what are some of the options? What are some options that exist? Asking for help from others. Really looking again at that network, build that network that you have. And even if you think your network is very small, networks don't have to be big. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed in this world of the world that we live in, where people are thinking about, oh, I only have 2 good friends. Like, I don't have this big social network. I don't have this, those 2 good friends might do more for you than 15 mediocre friends. Because those 2, you can rely upon, and those 2, you can call. And reach out to people who, again, may not be really your prime people that you would say, oh, I can always call on them. Maybe think of someone else, because they might really be the ones who are there to help you. And when we're thinking about your loved one, when we're thinking about the world of, the world of dementia that I work in, is realizing that your loved one's behavior and emotions are caused by an illness. It's not them. As one of our support group members always says, it's the disease, it's not them. And remembering that at the time of frustration, remembering that at the time where you're ready to say, you've asked me this question 5 times already. And you think that they truly just don't have the capacity to be able to remember the answer. It's an actual biological process that is happening, that they are not able to answer or remember the question. And enjoy the small victories. My co-facilitator does a podcast, and I was listening to one of the episodes today, and on it were 2 members of my support group, one, and he was saying is that he knows that every now and then he'd ask his mom, well, do you still love me, or do you love me? And she'd say yes. And then he's like, she still would be able to respond to that. On the really good days, she'd be able to say, I love you. She may not be able to do anything else, but that's a small victory that he would put in his pocket and he'd be able to hold on to. And when the times were really tough, he'd go back to that and he'd really think about that. And then, of course, to breathe, right? That breathing exercise. It's nothing big. It takes 10, 15, 20 seconds. I could think about doing a breathing exercise for longer than it would actually take to do the breathing exercise. So find the way to really do it. Take care of yourself and to slow down and to breathe. Sometimes people will say, oh, I don't have any space. I don't have any space in my house. My loved one is always around me. I don't have time. I don't have space. And we say, think about, if there's a spot in the house where your loved one may not go, if you can go there for a few minutes. Sometimes we find that the bathroom is almost that great place of respite. You can go in there and you can just close the door. And there's something about a bathroom door that's closed. Like, oh, I'm not going to bother them. And while you're in there, sit and breathe. You don't have to be going to the bathroom. Just maybe stand there and breathe and relax and find the way that you are able to calm yourself down to be able to reset. Also looking at the importance of talking to others. Chronic stress can be something that you cannot conquer on your own. You may try and you may want to, and you may have every intention, but you're not a failure if you reach out for help. That's why there are so many mental health professionals And luckily in the past few years, the recognition of mental health is really coming out and realizing that it's not just schizophrenia. It's depression, anxiety. Those are mental health as well. Those are mental health problems that people have to deal with all the time. So finding people that you can talk to, again, in a safe space, reaching out for help, either finding a therapist, finding a support group, or finding a friend who you can really just talk to and who can help you through this. They may not have to be able to understand, and they aren't going to be able to be there to fix it, but they just know that you are there. And I think that is what we all need in our day-to-day lives and where the struggles that do exist within our life, and seeing how just knowing that there's someone that you could talk to and that you can count on. So this is our pledge for you that I want all of you to be able to remember. Remember, I will remember others are there for love and support. I remember to grieve for my losses. And I will remember I am doing the best I can. So looking at this caregiver's pledge, and maybe if you want to write it down and put it up somewhere and give yourself credit. That's all, we always want to beat ourselves up on the things that we don't do, but think of all the things that you do. And that is really where you need to be honored, and you need to be, honor yourself in that as well. So one more time, I will remember others are there for love and support. Remember to grieve for my losses, and remember I'm doing the best I can. I thank you very much, all of you, for your time. It is just at 2 o'clock. So if you have any specific questions or anything that you want to chime in, please, I'd love to open up this time for that. Oops. Any thoughts or questions?
I have a question, Monica.
Yeah, go ahead, Elaine.
You mentioned this thing, laughter on call, because I agree, laughter is just so important for both the caregiver and the patient. How do you access laughter on call? I'm pretty sure that's the website. I'm pretty sure it's laughteroncall.org. Oh, okay, it's a website.
It's a website. It's a website. They have different programs. I'm actually, so yeah, they're a pretty good resource. I know they do a free laughter session, I think 1 day a week during lunchtime. And they've really done a lot for caregivers. And I think that's great. Again, it's, and the lady who's in charge, her mom had Alzheimer's disease, or has. And so that's where she came in. She's a comedian. I was like, well, what can I do about this, right? What can I do? Like, right. I'm only good at comedy. I'm not good at anything else. So how can I make this into something that can benefit people? So there's that information. And if I can come up with something else, I'll send it to you as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts or questions? Well, I thank you all for your time. I thank you for, again, to Cal State Dominguez Hills and the OLLI program for hosting me for this presentation. And I just hope you take something of this away in terms of the world of the importance of self-care. We see that there's a lot to do. Your lives are very, very busy, but realizing that it's these small little things that can make a difference in terms of making sure that you enjoy tomorrow and finding the way that you're able to take care of yourself.
Thank you so much, Monica, for this daily reminder. We definitely need to be reminded to care for ourselves, and we couldn't have done it today without you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Appreciate it. Yeah, the Laughter on Call website is in the chat. If you want to access the recording, that is also in the chat on a YouTube video. So if you can't get enough of me, you can just watch that a few times, and then and especially if you like those jokes, you can just come back and watch that part of the jokes all the time. So again, thank you very much for all of you. If any of you have questions or any additional information regarding Alzheimer's, dementia, needing support for there, I'm putting my email address in the chat, if I could spell UCLA right. And so please feel free to send me an email anytime. I'm very accessible to be able to help you out.
Thanks, Monica.
Take
Great.
care, Monica.
Thank you,
Take care,
everybody.
everyone.
All right. Bye. Have a great afternoon.